Okay, good morning and welcome to Mishna Yomi. Today we're learning Sheviis Parak Hey, the last Mishna Tet, and we will be starting a new Parak, Parak Vav, Mishna Aleph. Let's get right into it. Mishna Tet, Mashal Isha Lechaverta Chashuda Al Sheviis Nafa Kora Berechayim V'Tanor. Let's say again we're talking about these people, these farmers in Israel, or anyone in Israel is Chiloni, is not. They're not observant. They're not going to be careful with Hilchos Shemitah. One of the halachas of Shemitah is you're allowed to eat it before it's before a certain point in the year. Shemitah, it's called Zman HaBiur, where when it finishes, the plant, the vegetation finishes for the chaya in the field, for the wild animals in the field, you have to mavire, you have to get rid of it from your house. You can no longer eat it. Some people hold on to this Shemitah fruit longer. So if you give them methods of cooking it, or give them an oven, pots and things like that, or sifters, they're going to use it to make bread, make cuisine, make food that they're not allowed to make because they have to get rid of it. And even if they don't have to get rid of it, they have to be shomer some halachos of not throwing it out. La'achlu have said they can't throw it out. You're worried about these things. Still, you're allowed, even though Shechashud al Sheviis, she's a strong suspicion, she's not going to keep the halacha of the Shemitah. You're allowed to give her a nafa and a kfar. These are two types of different shifters. The reichayim, you're allowed to give her a millstone. Again, this millstone practically would be like a modern day mixer, a bread mixer. A tanur, let her borrow an oven. Even though these things you could say is maybe lifnei iver, los in michshol, like we learned in previous mishnayos. Again, like I explained yesterday, it's not lifnei iver, los in michshol, because these are only preparatory stages in the eating of the food, and therefore it's a secondary helping. It's misayeya. It's aiding them, but it's not putting the Isser right in front of him, like the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah. So it's two steps away, not one step away. They have to actually sift the flour, they have to cook the food. So it's two steps away. You can't actually help her because that is misayeya over avera. You're going to see, even though lending her the oven is also misayeya over avera. Darkei Shalom, the Mishna says at the end, because of peace, you want to keep peace, you don't want to give. She asks you to borrow something, you say no, it's going to lead to machlokas, it's going to lead to a bad thing. So this is a rabbanon, because of Darkei Shalom, they allowed you to do Yisurim the rabbanon, but you can't physically help her with it, because if you physically help her to bake and to cook with that is really lifnei iver. I mean, I would say it's lifnei iver, because when you're kneading with her, that's helping her one step away from having the actual bread. Eishes chaver. Now we bring in a halacha about shumas and maestros, which is incidentally related to this. Eishes chaver, mashal, so eishes ama aretz. A chaver is someone who's makbid on shumas and maestros. Ama aretz, they're not so makbid on shumas and maestros. Nafa ukvara, you could lend her these things, these sifters, uboreres, tochenes, marakedes, and additionally, she's allowed to actually help in grinding up the flour and separating the chaff, the bad stuff from the good stuff. You're allowed to help her actually physically do these things, because the Gemara says midoraisa rov ame aretz ma'isrim heim. Most we consume that even amaratzim they take off shumas and maestros, so therefore they're not suspect in shumas and maestros. So you're not really min a rov. You go after rov, you're not really helping them. You're not even misayeya them. It's not lifnei iver. Aval mashitatel and mayim. Once she puts water in the dough, in the flour, lo tiga etla, you shouldn't help her start to mix it. She'ein machzikin de over avera, because at that point it becomes roy for challah. It becomes huksher. The mayim, once the gilgul happens, we're going to learn Mesachas Challah. Once you start kneading the dough, it already becomes roy to call it challah. You can now designate it as challah. You have to take off, when you need a certain amount of dough, you have to take off a certain part called challah and give it to the kohanim. It's already fit to be called challah at that point, and therefore it's makabel tuma. And amaretz amaratzim usually are not makbid in hilchos tara and tuma. So there's tuma and there's an isser of being matame challah. So she's being matame the challah. When you help her out in that, you are assisting in ishadal raisa being matame the challah, which is a problem. All these heterim allow you to do two steps away, and say, only is the rabbanon. That is because of Darkei Shalom. Shalom allows you to violate an Isser Rabbanan because that's more important than the Isser Rabbanan. And the Rabbanan considered not getting to Machlokas is more important. It's going really long here. Machzikin de Nachrim b'Shviis. Like we mentioned in Perek Daled, you're allowed to say, if a guy is working the land during a Shemitah in Eretz Yisrael, you're allowed to say you're doing a good job. You can't help them, but you can say you're doing a good job. It doesn't really help them. Yisrael, but you can't do that to Yisrael. Shalom b'Shlomim neidarach Shalom. You're always supposed to say hello to Goyim. Now, technically, the Shem of Hashem is called Shalom. To say Shalom Aleichem to a guy, I don't know why you say Shalom Aleichem to a guy. They don't know what Shalom Aleichem is. But if you want to say Hashem's name, even though really not supposed to say Hashem's name by Goyim, you're allowed to say that because it brings peace between you and the Goyim. Let's go on to Mishnah Perek Vav, Mishnah Aleph. Shalosh Aratzos Sheviis. There's 3 different parts of Eretz Yisrael that have different halachas for Shemitah. The main part of Eretz Yisrael, they had originally when they left Egypt, Klal Yisrael captured part of Eretz Yisrael, and then Ole Bavel, when they went back in time of after Achashverosh, when they went back from Bavel after Achashverosh, in the time of Ezra, they retook the land. They recaptured even more cities. They captured less cities. It was a smaller area. So we paskin whatever their Makadesh in the time of Yeshua when they conquered the land does not retain its sanctity if they didn't conquer it in the time of Bavel and then in the time of Ezra. So only what they conquered in Bavel the second time, which is most of Eretz Yisrael, ad Kaziv, or basically excluding the Golan Heights over here. You're not allowed to eat it after the Zman Beer. You have to treat it with Kedusha Sheviis. You can't be mafted it. You have to throw out the peels and things like that. Below Nevad, and you can't work that land. These basic Ziv, Nar, Amana, these are basically regions. Amana is Horahar, where Aaron died. It was buried. That's in the northwest of Eretz Yisrael, right next to the Mediterranean, near Akko, a little above Akko. So basically, the Golan Heights. This indicates basically the entire Golan Heights. Nechal avol nevad. You could eat from it. Because technically it's not part of the Kidsha Rishon, lo Kidsha L'Shaisav, lo Kidsha L'Slavo. It doesn't have Kedusha Eretz Yisrael regarding Shemitah. So you're allowed to eat it. You don't have to worry about Kedusha Sheviis with the fruits. With their abundance, since it's close to Israel, very close, there were goes there that you shouldn't work the land. Minanar, Nevad, parts that are above Harahar, which is basically present-day Lebanon, that is not part of Eretz Yisrael at all, and therefore you can work the land. There's no Kedusha Sheviis, only on land of Eretz Yisrael. Hope you enjoyed today's share. Stay tuned for your Mishnah coming up right now.